Hello and welcome back to the United Devils podcast. And the Premier League is just a few days away with Manchester United playing Leeds on Saturday. But of course, the Premier League does start tomorrow with Arsenal against Brentford. And we're going to be looking forward to some fantastic games on the opening week. With me today is Aaron and Suraj. And we'll just get started from the top. Obviously, some huge transfer news in the last few days, and one that we we sort of almost cursed with, the fact that, you both predicted Barcelona to be one of the favourites to win the Champions League, and unfortunately their best player has now moved to PSG on a 2-year deal, and I think he's going to be their highest earner with 650k a week. It was a bit of a shock because it was obviously something that neither Barcelona nor Messi wanted to do, but something they had to do due to the financial implications of what is a ludicrous wage budget and some shambolic transfer spending with 300 million spent since 2017. Arian, what do you think about Messi to PSG? Does it make PSG the team to beat really at this point, or does it still mean that there are still some flaws with them?
Well, I think overall, even if they had some flaws in midfield, like the signing of somebody like Messi really just it makes it difficult, because like you feel like even if teams know how to play against them, PSG will just be able to outscore anybody with that front three of Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. It feels like something you would only be able to come up with in the video game. And especially then when you consider how they strengthened defensively too with Ramos and Donnarumma, it's like they've really put together like an all-star team, basically. Like, you don't really see those in football that often, where it's basically, I think I heard somebody call them the next Galacticos after that Real Madrid team of the early 2000s. Like, this is literally kind of the equivalent of that in terms of the star power. So yeah, I think like when you look at PSG right now off the top, it's like if they don't win everything that there is to win, it's just a failure. Even if they win, like you can't go in there and say, oh, we won the French league and the French Cup and that's enough. Like, that's not going to be enough. They have by far, I think, the best squad in the world. Probably just City can compete with them in terms of just overall squad depth. So it's going to be interesting to see how Pochettino puts it together, because he's never had to deal with this many personalities, and like this is next level egos and characters that he has in that dressing room now. It's just every seat in that dressing room is going to be winner after winner that wants to be the star player and has been a star player at some point in their career. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And then, like you said, what we said about Barcelona last week, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens to them, because as far as I know, they still, even though they've given contracts to the likes of Aguero and Memphis, they're not able to register them still in terms of La Liga, and the season starts on Saturday. So I think in terms of the team that they have, the team is still pretty good, and their potential front line of Griezmann, Memphis, Aguero, there's Dembele still there. They still have some good players. Of course, there's no Messi. So you immediately say, oh, well, they're kind of taken out of all the favorites pictures in terms of the league and Champions League. But they still have quite a good young team, and the midfield there too. But it's just those ongoing issues that they have with La Liga being on top of them and not being able to register players. They're kind of in a pickle. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage to resolve all of that, because that news that was breaking about their ratio of revenue to wages, it's ridiculous. And a player like Antoine Griezmann being on 900k euro a week, it's just insanity how they let that happen, how the board let it to get to that point. So yeah, it's been a crazy week. I definitely didn't expect that Messi thing to escalate so quickly. Like, one day he was crying at the Barca presser, and then the next day he was already signed to Paris. It was a little fishy for me how quickly all that happened. Such a big move too. But hey, if you have the money, then I guess these things can happen really quickly. So it definitely puts all the pressure on PSG, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, of course, for a team that's sort of not had that level of Champions League success at all. It just means that they almost like they have to win it. This year is their year, and they sort of nothing better. Every goal they concede, every time they miss a chance, it's going to be heavily scrutinized, I think, and that is a lot of pressure. But it's something that with that team, they've got a lot of they've got a lot of players with good mentality. Obviously, Messi is a fantastic leader, and they've got Verratti, who just won a Euro, and they've got Marquinhos, who's been a mainstay in that team. They've got some good players, Donnarumma too, and so really a lot of pressure is on them. Just coming back to the Barcelona point, is that it's strange that that Griezmann was given such big wages when it's well recorded that Atletico don't pay their players astronomical wages. It's more about you play and die for this team, and so to be, I think it's almost quadrupled his wages that he was on at Atletico. It's a shocking. It was a revelation a few months ago, but it's still shocking to find out. But you're absolutely right. He's got a lot of Pochettino's got a lot of attitude, a lot of ego to deal with, and one of them is Kylian Mbappe, who reports suggest that he's not fazed by Messi joining. He still wants to leave PSG, and obviously his contract expires next summer, so they don't really want to lose him on a free. Someone who's probably one of the best young talents in world football. So, Suraj, what do you see happening with Mbappe?
I think last season at PSG, I think Real have made it abundantly clear that they're literally collecting wages so that they can sign him next season. And I think this PSG squad, the thing that I want to see, that I really need to judge is, are they playing as a team or are they playing as 11 celebrities together? Because there are going to be some huge egos in there. And you know what happened between Neymar and Cavani. And I don't think Messi is that kind of a player who would, go and start, beefing with everyone in the dressing room. But he's the kind of guy who gets all the attention. And I know that Neymar and Mbappe aren't going to like that a lot. So uh, I think definitely Mbappe is going to be looking for a move next summer. I hope it's not anyone else in the Premier League, and I hope it's Real Madrid. And I think this salary cap is hitting Real also quite a bit, because usually you see them just spending 130 million on their players, but of late even they've been really conservative in their approach in the market. So I think they're eyeing for a move next summer. I saw some pictures Mbappe posted on Twitter of him hugging Messi and all, but I haven't. I mean, that's probably not what was in his mind. I think the only thing that would convince Mbappe to stay at PSG is if they win everything this season, the league, the Champions League. Because if the Messi, Neymar, Mbappe front three clicks like the MSN clicked, then why does he need to leave? He's not going to leave to go and play alongside Vinicius, is he? He's not. He's going to play alongside Messi and Neymar. I think that's why they've given Messi a 2-year contract with an option to extend for 3. Because I was almost certain they'd just give him a 4-year contract, because he's Messi. Uh, but I think even PSG are a little conservative with their approach here. They just want to see how things work, and I think it's all going to go down to how they click, how Pochettino sets them up, because they have a star-studded team, and like Arion said, that's the kind of team you see in an all-star side that you need to literally make up on paper. Um, so yeah, completely, all eyes are on them, and they need to show that we're not just talk. And if they start firing, I see no reason why Mbappe would want to leave.
Sorry. Yes, I think the fact is that it's strange to compare him, but it's a similar situation to Paul Pogba in that there's there's a potential move for both of them. They both think that this could be a big step in their career for different reasons, obviously, but they're not wholly convinced by what's going on at the current club. But I think if success comes in this season, they might make a decision to stay. I think Pogba's more likely to stay than Mbappe at this stage, more because PSG have spent a lot of money this summer. I say that they've brought a lot of players in this summer, and they might be looking for someone different than Paul Pogba, especially with Messi coming in now. So he might be thinking, well, maybe I should stay, but that's up to the club to sort of perform to the level that it's expected to, because I think United obviously need to be competing for titles. They need to be winning trophies, and that's something that he sees as well. So maybe it's something like that. And same for Mbappe. PSG need to be competing for the Champions League and winning it, not just half getting there and then stuttering at the semi-final, which realistically, that game they had all the chances in the world to do wonders against a weakened Man City side at the time, but didn't really hit the mark. So, they really need to step up, and I think that'll make the decision. But then at the same time, you don't want players dictating, saying that, well, the club's got to be better for me to want to stay. You never want that kind of situation. So it's a tricky one for Mbappe and for PSG. But we'll have to see how that goes, because obviously there's still, I want to say, 18 days left of the transfer window, because I think it finishes on the 1st of September, maybe 19 actually. So there's still plenty of stuff that could happen, and certainly for Manchester United, which we'll go on to now, because in an interview today, Solskjaer said that he still wants one more signing in, and with Dalot set to stay, that's looking more likely to be a midfielder. Obviously, no one knows of the main target bar Declan Rice, because, the transfer fee is astronomical and not going to be met, really, I don't think, this summer at least. So, we're talking about a midfielder for another podcast, but Arian, who would you like to see at Old Trafford, and who's the most likely candidate?
At this point, I don't even know, to be honest, because it's not going to be Rice, because he's by far too expensive, and United haven't really been linked with anybody else. There was Soul, but it feels like if United don't really sell, then they probably don't have enough money for him either. From all of the noises that were coming out of Manchester over the whole summer, like it felt like United really needed significant sales in order to fund even the 40-50 million signing. So it's kind of, I was surprised to hear that. And then earlier today, I was also seeing things that were saying that United might just bring in a midfielder that's not like Varane and Sancho caliber of player in terms of name, but somebody a bit more low key. But like I said, I have no idea. There has been no links really. Somebody that pops into my mind when it comes to that caliber of player is the likes of Bissouma from Brighton, but he hasn't really been linked to many teams, and especially not United throughout the summer at all. And I just can't imagine Brighton selling him for less than they sold Ben White, to be honest. In terms of him being an English player and proven in the Premier League, so it's a really interesting one, and I'm actually quite surprised that a lot of people are still not fully satisfied. Well, I understand that people are not satisfied, because bringing in a centre back, a winger, and a midfielder would have been the ideal scenario. But I feel like even with the two signings, and if United don't get any more deals done, the squad is a lot deeper if the players that are there stay, and especially in terms of attacking options, because I think that's where United were lacking a lot last season, especially in the final in Gdansk. Like, Solskjaer looked at the bench and there was nobody really to bring on, whereas now with Martial back, with Cavani staying, with Sancho coming in, there is all of a sudden a lot more options, and with Van de Beek having a season under his belt. So I feel like in terms of attack, United have improved a lot, and there are a lot of midfield options, and I feel like those midfield options in terms of the McFred partnership were really weakened by United not having that world-class centre-back partnering Maguire, and that issue has been solved too by Varane coming in. So I do think that the potential, even with just two signings, is there for United to be a lot better than they were last season. And of course, we know that Solskjaer doesn't like signing players just for the sake of it. So in my eyes, I think United are strong enough to challenge as it is. And if the opportunity presents itself to sign a midfielder that will complement this team, then sure. But if not, then I don't think there's any point in trying to force feed somebody into this team that will maybe long term not be the best option. And next season or next summer or even in January, an opportunity opens up to sign somebody maybe like a Camavinga, who doesn't look like he's going anywhere in the summer really as of right now. But I'm sure Lille or Rennes won't want to let him go for free. So if it stretches into January, you never know what could happen. So I think Solskjaer has preached patience, and I think that's important in this transfer window too, not to rush into anything kind of rash, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is that, looking for how to pick someone who's your first choice or your second choice that are going to complement the team instead of just buying someone, just because, we need a midfielder and they'll do. That's not going to work for United at this stage when they're supposed to be bridging the gap from 12 points and competing for the trophies and not just trying to make do with what they've got. They're not in a crisis situation at this point. It's not a danger or an issue where you need someone just to come in and be a stopgap, like perhaps not. I say not to disrespect, but for Mari or Suarez or Ceballos at Arsenal. I mean, there were players to come in that could do a job in a certain position and would help them improve with depth, but not ones to take them to the next level per se. But so that's what United really need at this point, because McTominay and Fred are an excellent partnership and they win games. I think they're unbeaten in their last, I think it's 20 odd games or something when they've been together. And United have scored a lot of goals while they've been in that midfield. I think they did it against Roma, against Leeds, and against Southampton. They started in those big games. So I mean, it's an important thing to have improvements on that, because obviously they do have flaws in their game, but it's only for the right player. I think that's absolutely right. And I think if only someone could come around that would be the right option for the right price, then United will go for it, and they want to join, obviously. But if not, then I think we're in a position of strength in that sense. And the fact is that Matic can, I mean, for the start of the season, he's had a really good pre-season, and if he can get going at the start of the season, that would be a huge boost. But obviously he might drop because his legs aren't what they were. And if he drops around November, December, that means January comes calling, and we might be able to get someone in. So that could be a big positive. But what I will say is, talking about someone who might be leaving, Suraj Ahmad looks like he's going to go out on loan. No club seems to be, treated as the first choice for United to loan him to. But I mean, do you think that's a good move for him?
I think the only condition I'd let Ahmad go on loan is that he gets a Premier League club and they promise him minutes. Uh, so I think Ahmad is ready to play for United. That's what I've drawn from his appearances. But he's not ready to start. But maybe he can play a more Anthony Ilanga type role where he gets a few minutes at the end of how Ilanga will be incorporated. Who is another player that I think should stay. Uh, they shouldn't be rushed in. They shouldn't be given the pressure that go get us the winner, get us the equalizing goal. He should be given a role like when you're 2-0 up and you're cruising, just bring him on, let him do his thing, let him play his own game because he, from whatever I've seen of him last season, he's very expressive and he isn't scared. He, usually when players make their debut, they like to play the safe passes and all, not with Ahmad. So I think he's ready. He has the right mentality to. Not once has he looked scared. So I think he has everything that a Manchester United youngster requires, and I think he should stay. I wouldn't want to see him go out on loan. I think he'll definitely stay, fight for his place, and I think with Sancho, he won't be under a lot of pressure to start, and he will also get the perfect number of minutes. That that's why I think Perisic going out on loan is good because Perisic and Ahmad are on two different levels for me. I think Perisic still has a lot to develop, but for me, Ahmad is ready to start. Even his Atlanta teammates have said we have so many great players in our team, but in training, we're always afraid of Ahmad because he's so good at dribbling and so good at just progressing the ball forward. Uh, like I said, the only condition I'd let him go out on loan is if it's a Premier League club and they promise him minutes and moments, like how Dean Henderson got 20 minutes. So the loan process is uh, a little more complex. Some clubs they just come and inquire for loans. Some clubs come with a definite plan saying, "Hey, this is our plan for your player, and this is how we think he will develop." And only if a club really comes and convinces the board that Amar will be better off with them, should he go. But I think, uh, and this is this is something that is kind of stuck in my head that Solskjaer is the best manager for youngsters, and I want Ahmad to be guided under Solskjaer because he knows what it takes. So I ideally don't want him to go out on loan.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Obviously, I'm reading a bit and just thinking, well, it would be good for him to get minutes, but it's obviously got to be guaranteed and at a top sort of the top level because he is at that stage, I think, where he can change a game in at the top flight. So I think that's something that to consider. But obviously, if that's not an option, then I think with Rashford injured, we then have Greenwood, Sancho, James, Martial, Cavani, and Alanga. And Cavani's not ready yet, and Sancho might not be ready yet because he's only doing training on Monday. So we probably need somebody else in there for the moment. I think maybe if it is going to be a loan, it's going to be at the later stage of the transfer window. And obviously, we remember last year when we did, I think, 4 or 5 deals in the last 5 or 6 days of the transfer window. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again, just not because it's a panic, not because it's, getting things over the line, but just because they're taking their time to assess all the options at the start of the season, which is something that's very important. So we'll have to see how that turns out. But I mean, either way, as long as, like you said, as long as it's for gets a lot of minutes and it's at a top division team, I'm happy with Emma going on loan. But again, I'd be really happy if he stayed as well because I love watching him play. But we'll move on to someone
I would
outside.
go as far as saying a Premier League team because he has already experienced area, and I think La Liga is not the team to go at the moment because the only teams that he would get experience against is Atletico and Real. I don't consider Barcelona a threat at the moment. Uh, that's why I want him to stay at the Premier League. He'll get to experience teams like City's fast attacks, and I think even Chelsea are going to be very tactically strong next season. So I'd go as far as to say the Premier League.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, I think also to develop physically for the Premier League as well would be an important stage of his development. But we'll move on quickly because we've not got much time for the preview. But we'll talk about quickly Harry Kane again, it will seem. But earlier today, reports suggest that City aren't done trying to get Harry Kane to join Manchester City. And it looks like a formal bid of 150 million euros or around 135 million pounds will be submitted in the next few days. And they want him to try and start on, I think it's on Sunday against Tottenham. So, Arian, do you see the likelihood of Kane joining, or do you think Nuno's done enough to convince him to stay for at least one more year?
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised that City haven't given up because they need a striker more than they needed Jack Grealish, if we're being honest here. The only striker that they have on the books that's an out-and-out striker now left is Gabriel Jesus. And I just think that overall, in all the years that Pep has had with him, he just hasn't become what Pep, I think, thought he would be. And I think it somewhat has to be on Pep too, that he just wasn't able to develop him into the kind of lethal striker that they thought, because I think that the view of signing him was that once Aguero leaves, he will be the natural replacement. But Aguero has left and they're kind of stuck in a pickle here that they might have to start the season playing a false nine again. So I was personally surprised that they went so aggressively after Jack Grealish, where their wings and just playmaker positions are absolutely stacked. And they didn't go after a striker first. So it doesn't surprise me. And of course, with FFP just turning a blind eye to what City and PSG are doing, they have money to spend, they have an unlimited fund. So I think whatever Tottenham tell them that's under 200 million and in that 150 range, I think they would be able to match it comfortably. So I think it's going to be interesting. I'm sure that Nuno would like him to give him at least a season, because the way he was able to set up Wolves with that big focal point striker that Raul Jimenez was, I think he just has the personnel at Spurs that he has is just a little bit better. So I think the potential there is probably a bit higher. And it would be a shame if they lost him now and they have very limited time themselves to then go reinvest and bring in a striker. But I think after they turned Grealish's head, who is obviously Villa homegrown and a lifelong fan. I think with the way that Kane has been over the last few weeks, with not turning up for training and really voicing his dissatisfaction and desire to leave, it wouldn't shock me if it happened. I don't think it's going to happen for this weekend. Like, I think that's coming pretty close, and he hasn't really trained yet either. So I don't think it's going to happen this soon, but it wouldn't surprise me if by the end of August he would be a City player. And there's those rumors as well in the background that I don't really believe about FFP maybe giving them a ban for a few windows and stuff. So I think they're really trying to like load their squad just in case some repercussions hit them, which like I said, probably a bit unlikely, but if they do, they're going to be kind of stacked with a good squad for years to come, and they won't really need to reinvest that much. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to kind of answer your question directly, but it's going to be interesting. I was personally, even just as a fan of City's rival, but I just as a fan of football, I would like him to stay at Spurs and at least give it another go with a new manager and some fresh ideas. But I think that pull that City have in terms of Champions League and being so close, and you might be the guy that's going to push us over the line, I think that is probably very hard to turn down for most players.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that whatever he signs now could be his last big contract, which is something that he's got to consider what's best for him. So there is that, but then the way to conduct yourself about not going to training and then saying, oh, well, I always intended to go back to training at this time was, I mean, obviously not true. But it's a strange one, because you wouldn't expect him to act like that in the way that he's conducted himself over the last few years. I mean, even when there's been interest constantly, and the fact is that he's such a great goal scorer and a great striker that people are going to be interested in Harry Kane, and Tottenham have underperformed, especially in their best moments under Pochettino, that 16-17 and 17-18 seasons where they were outstanding for great parts of the season, and got to that Champions League final in 18-19 and really failed to play well at all. So, I mean, there's things to consider there that Kane will want to win trophies, and he's not won a trophy yet, and he'll want to do that. At the same time, Tottenham have probably the best chance to win a European trophy they've had for years in this new European conference. But will that be enough for him is hard to tell at this point. But what would be quite funny is if he scored against Man City and then was starting to score for Man City a few weeks later. That could be a quite fun storyline. But we'll have to see what happens with him. Obviously, if he goes, it'll be for masses of money that Tottenham will try and reinvest properly now with the new director of football and a manager with a very clear philosophy, really. So I'm going to be interested to see how Tottenham do, especially against Man City on the opening weekend, because that's going to be a huge task for them. And if they could knock some points off Man City, that would be lovely. But, I mean, I'm not sure whether they will be able to or not. One thing I will say, though, before we move on to United versus Leeds, is that in the last 9 seasons, only one team that has lost the Community Shield has gone on to win the title. So things are looking up, I think. But I don't know how Man City will. In fact, I think the one team that actually managed to break that was Liverpool in the 2019-20 season. So it was recent, unfortunately, but they're the only team that have lost the Community Shield and then won the title afterwards. So if history repeats itself, that would be really lovely. But, you know, with City, they tend to sort of ruin dreams. So there we go. But let's move on to Leeds versus Manchester United at Old Trafford on Saturday at 12:30. It's going to be a cracking game, I think. Obviously, a derby. Obviously, the first game back with full fans at Old Trafford since the Manchester derby in March 2020. Last time United played Leeds, they won 6-2. They scored 2 goals in the first few minutes. It was a fantastic match, really open, end-to-end. And one of those games that we said McTominay and Fred were outstanding in. Here's the question, Aaron. Do you think, I know we talked about this earlier or a few podcasts ago, but do you think it will be a similar game to Old Trafford, or do you see it being more like the one at Elland Road where Leeds were really conservative and didn't really create any chances?
So a part of me thinks that based on that previous experience, Bielsa will come, and especially because it's Old Trafford and it's going to be absolutely rocking in favour of United, obviously, and everybody is just starved of Premier League football. I think I'd like to think that Bielsa will come and play a bit more conservatively, like he did at Ellen Road, just kind of knowing what United are good at and try to kind of null those before they try to play their football. And I think they're well suited to playing on the break too because of how quick and fit they are. But another side of me thinks that just because they've had a full preseason with their whole team, bar Calvin Phillips, who already looks up to speed by starting, I think, their last 2 preseason games, it makes me feel like they might come and try to punch United in the mouth and kind of dictate and just show that they are the fitter side. But I'm thinking, looking at the United-Everton game, that the United players that came back late look already ahead of the curve than where they should be in terms of fitness. Like, United didn't look like a team that was playing their first game together, especially in that first 45 minutes. They were really clicking and they looked energetic and dynamic. And I think the start that they had against Everton is going to be something that they're going to need against Leeds, regardless of how they want to play over the course of 90 minutes. I think coming out and kind of trying to set the tone and showing that we want to control this game and not let you go head to head with us is something that's very important, no matter what the fitness level is. So I do think that with the atmosphere and just with how United want to play this season, they're going to try and send a message and kind of get grips of the game and not let Leeds get into it and kind of outpress them and give up the ball and go toe to toe. So in that case, I think with all of those factors combining, I think the Leeds might be forced to kind of take a step back and readjust and kind of play the way that United want them to, and especially with the fact that they haven't really strengthened. And I know the team that United will probably feel the first 11 isn't going to be really strengthened either, but it's just like, on paper, position for position, it's not really a comparison. Like, Leeds are a glorified championship side in terms of their squad. They're just playing really good and in a really good system. We have to be honest here. There is a lot of players there that wouldn't make it at other Premier League teams, but they're just excellent in their roles there at Leeds. So I think talent-wise, player for player, United should have that game quite comfortably and like they've showed they're capable of. But it's just a matter of what the work was put in over the last week in terms of fitness and just how dynamic and energetic they come out, because we know that United are known for slow starts from the start, especially with no fans. But I think the fact that there's going to be a packed and bouncing Old Trafford for this game, and Leeds is the rivalry game, I don't think that energy is going to be an issue to start this game. And even when players get tired, I think that crowd is going to be able to give even tired legs a second win. So I'm quietly optimistic about this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a cracking game, whatever the result is. But I think the fact is that we know United turn up for the big games. It's something that they're really, really good at under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And they, especially against Leeds, they put in some good performances, especially the one at Old Trafford. But the one at Ellen Road, I mean, they played well. They just missed the chances they took. And I think a couple ones fell to Dan James, who squandered them. But in the home game, he was fantastic. The counter press that he put in, his energy levels, and he even scored a goal. He was really crucial to that. I mean, do you see him starting that game, Siraj, or do you think it's going to be full strength? Do you think maybe Sancho, Greenwood, Martial or something, or maybe even Pogba on that left wing? I mean, do you see James starting that game?
That's a good shout, but I don't have James in my lineup. What I would do is that since we don't have Varane in the team yet, I would obviously prefer a McTominay Fred pivot because we need that extra cover. And like Arion said, they haven't strengthened a lot, so we know who their players are and what they're going to do. We know Bamford, what he's going to do. We know what Rafinha is going to do. So we need that extra cover at the back. And so what I have done is Rashford is obviously not going to be there. So on the left-hand side, I put Pogba. And so it's kind of a diamond midfield. And Pogba needs to extend the width on the left-hand side. And up front, I've gone for Greenwood and Cavani. So do you remember the FA Cup game against Liverpool that we won 3-2? So I think that's something that we need to do because their left back, Alioski, he left. So instead of strengthening, they've lost a good player. So Dallas will have to play. And I know he's a great player, but I think we can exploit that because then there'll be a little short starved on their left flank. So what I would like to do is have Pogba on the left and him feed balls to Greenwood, who will make that outside run from the right wing. So I think that could be one way, one approach, because I don't think Sancho will or should start, because I think it's easy to forget with his 240 goals plus assist seasons that he's still very young and he's coming to a new league from uh, Germany after a poor, I wouldn't say poor, but disappointing Euros campaign. So I think we still need to ease him in. So the best option would be to have Greenwood and Cavani start, and once when you know that they're tiring out, get Sancho and make him run at them. I think that's where he'll excel. So if he has a good few touches, his confidence will increase. So we can go into the next game with Sancho as the starting option. But I wouldn't start him. I'd play him on the bench, get him on. And that's why I think even Dan James comes in when they're tired, because we know what Cavani does with his on and off the ball movement. He's just gonna run around, tire the
Well, will Cavani be back? Because I think he's only just started
yeah.
joining training. So
I don't think
will it
I don't
be
think
him?
he can like it.
Oh, is he not? I saw him doing exercises in the gym, but
Exercise
maybe he's not
videos,
actually
yeah.
back.
That's why I think he could play, but again, if he's not there, then we'll have to start Martial, who I am not a big fan of. But in worst case scenario, if Cavani is not back for whatever reason, I mean, if City are hoping to have Kane ready for the game on Sunday, I think having Cavani back is still, because Cavani is not a player that you really need to coach. He just goes on the pitch and does his thing. So I think even if he's back tomorrow, he should be in contention to start, because as we know, he has been training. Uh, he just needs minutes, which I think he can get because he's an experienced player. Uh, so I would start him even if there's a 60% chance of him being available. I'd start him, let him tire the defenders, get Sancho and Dan James on later on, and let them run at the defense. And we know Leeds are probably, I think Leeds are one of the worst sides to start with because they're one of the most unpredictable teams in the league. And we know Bielsa won't make the same mistakes he made last time. He's not the kind of guy who would lose 6-2 and then come back and then lose again. He will make changes. So uh, I I think we should still win, but I definitely am not taking this game for granted because it can be a hard fought win.
Yeah, it's. I think it will be a tough match regardless. And I remember the game at Old Trafford. I was still nervous when they were 4-1 up.
Yeah.
Liam Cooper scored, I was still nervous just because, it could go to 4-2, or it could go to 4-3, and if it goes to 4-2, then it could go to 4-3, then it could go to 4-4 kind of thing. But that's just the way they play, and it could be one cracker of a game, especially back in front of the fans. I think the team will want to get goals and they'll want to celebrate in the joy with the fans coming back. One thing that is a slight negative, obviously Varane's not going to be playing, so it will probably be Lindelof and Maguire. I don't mind that because they were really good against Leeds. They didn't put a foot wrong really in the 6-2. And Lindelof actually being given the captaincy for Sweden, I hopefully will improve his leadership and his will get his voice on the pitch. And obviously the competition with Varane should help with that too. There is a bit of nervousness, obviously. No Dean Henderson, who is a very vocal player, but David De Gea, obviously, he's struggled with, claiming for crosses, for being a sweeper keeper, for having his own voice for distribution. Certainly, I think quite a few United fans still have a negative perspective of him from the Europa League final, and for some reasons, quite rightly, some reasons not so much, but also the fact that Kepa made a couple saves yesterday as well. Probably has a little bit more of a refresh of that De Gea's inability to save 11 penalties. Arian, how are you nervous for David De Gea being in goal, or do you feel like he can have this chance to show that he's back properly?
Um, I'm personally nervous, but that has nothing to do with the Gdansk. It's just that has been my kind of way with De Gea for the past couple of years, because it's just the truth of the matter is that he is still capable of excellent shot stopping, but the sides of his game that he's just either not able to or refusing to work on and improve, teams have found out how to exploit them, and a lot of times United can get hurt by it. When I look at the Leeds game, I'm not as worried because they aren't as physical up front. So I'm not really that worried that they're going to be whipping crosses into Bamford all game and they're going to expose De Gea. The only thing I am kind of worried about is set pieces. Without Varane and with De Gea on the line, the way Rafinha whips balls in from corners and free kicks is very dangerous, and often needs somebody really to command and get on it. And if they're able to bypass Maguire from those set pieces, it could be nervy. But I think otherwise, other than set pieces, which it's United's kryptonite, so I hope Eric Ramsey's work, even with the Gea in goal, is on show in this one, especially on the defensive side. But I think other than that, I think the Gea should be fine. And if there is a need for him in this game, it will be shot stopping or coming off his line in order to prevent balls over the top. Because if United are in control and they play high, Leeds can break really quickly and get in behind. And I think it's going to be important for him to read his area and don't be glued to his box, but kind of come out a little further when United are in possession, so he is able to anticipate and clear some of those over the top balls that could cause danger. But like I said, I think in a game like this, against a side that wants to play good football like Leeds, I think it's going to be his shot stopping that's going to be the most important. And I do think that he is capable, and he looked quite sharp against Everton. If we're honest, he didn't really have that much to do, but when he was called upon, he looked kind of assured and he was catching and not spilling. So yeah, the only thing that would really concern me is the set pieces and just his kind of reluctance to put his body in. And because I feel like, especially knowing the profile of goalkeeper that he is, referees would give him a lot of fouls if he was putting his body into strikers and getting physical and getting kind of just moved around on his line. So I'm not sure why. It must be a mental barrier at this point, that why he doesn't want to do it. But I'm not kind of as scared as I would usually be. If I feel like I would be more nervous if United were playing Burnley in terms of De Gea on Saturday than I am Leeds. So I think in that case, United should be fine. And like I said, he had a long summer off. He didn't really play. He looked sharp against Everton. So I think we're going to be fine in that regard.
Thank you. Yeah, and obviously I think that is now the last piece of the defensive puzzle for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to work on. Obviously, Dean Henderson coming back soon would help add competition. It would make a decision. But if De Gea starts the season well, that could be a huge boost for him in his sort of bid to reclaim number one spot, which he lost really at the end, at the sort of midway point of the season. But I mean, one thing I would quite like is if he could save a penalty, because there was the Crystal Palace one. You know, he saved the penalty and then it got chalked out, and I think sometimes that has a mental block on you. So, I mean, if he could save one, maybe it will mean he will save more. I don't know, because I mean, there was the 2016 one against Lukaku was the last one he saved and was counted officially. So, I mean, it's been a long time. So I think if he could do something like that soon, it could help him get his confidence back and bounce back in the right way. But you never know how these things work. It could just be one save, one moment, and like I said, one moment against Ronaldo defeated all the confidence he'd built up over the last 3 or 4 years. So it works in both ways.
Against Arsenal, where he saved the penalty, Van Persie's penalty.
Van Persie's penalty. Yeah, that was one of his best games.
I thought this guy is going to be great at penalties.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll have to see. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it because he's conceded. I don't remember the stats, but it's a lot of penalties that he's conceded. And obviously, penalties are penalties, but, it's what it is. But we'll talk about now the midfield and the rest of the predicted lineup, because obviously I think we know what the back four and the goalkeeper is going to be with Varane not ready to start. Suraj, you've given the rest of your attack in midfield. I mean, Aaron, do you agree with most Suraj's selections, or do you think something different?
I actually think that it's going to be very similar to the Everton lineup, to be honest, and I kind of agree with it in terms of just fitness. Like last season, I know it was the whole squad that didn't really have a preseason, so there wasn't really a lot that Solskjaer could do about fitness in that Crystal Palace game. But Palace weren't really fit either, if we're being honest, and they were just able to kind of overpower United at Old Trafford in that home opener. So with that in mind, though, I think this season Solskjaer does have options in terms of playing fitter players, and not just going, for the names, just to have that star power there. So I do believe that squad that he played against Everton, and especially the first half and the way United played, that they pinned them back and had all of the ball and created chances and scored goals. I think that's how they will want to play in that. And that's why when I was thinking about it, I think the only change that I really see in there is Fred coming in for Van de Beek. And that's just purely for the energy aspect in midfield, just not to have Van de Beek kind of overwhelmed by how dynamic the Leeds midfield is, especially next to Matic, who I think will do even better if he has a pair of legs that want to do the running next to him. But on the other hand, I was thinking about it, and with how they were able to dominate midfield and get the ball forward and kind of pin Everton back, I think Van de Beek could still start next to Matic, and then you have a Fred and McTominay or one of the two to come on in the second half if United need to maybe take the foot off the gas because of fitness issues or whatever, to kind of bring you that pair of fresh legs and really bring it to the Leeds midfield in the latter stages when maybe they will think that, oh, now we have them, we're going to outrun them, but no, you have, a Fred or a McTominay to come on and really give you that second win in midfield. So that is the only reason that I think Van de Beek might drop out is for that reason, just for the legs and Fred's tenacity and eagerness to run, and just how kind of hectic he can be, and he can overwhelm the opposition and win the balls back and help with the press. And then the other one that I was kind of thinking about, considering Pogba played 45 minutes against Everton, I think he will be capable to maybe play an hour. So he could start, but I do think if he does start, it would be out wide. And I'm not particularly sure if it would be instead of James, because James has a full preseason, and I think his style against Leeds works. I think it would be instead of Martial, to be honest, and then that would shift Greenwood in the middle, and then Pogba would be on the left and James on the right. I think that could happen, but it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if United went with the same front three and just the same starting 11 period. And then just rely on substitutes, have a Sancho option, have a Pogba option on the bench, have Fred there. But I do think that my kind of, in my head, the starting 11 is the same as Everton, minus Van de Beek and Fred in.
I think I'm one tweak away from agreeing with that, and I think instead of Matic, it could be Fred, because on the count, like you said, on the counter, I still think even a fully fit Matic with a full preseason will still get overrun in midfield, unfortunately, on a counter attack with Leeds rushing players forward, and especially because Rodrigo's been playing a lot more centrally in preseason, which has been something that I think Matic would struggle with, just because he's a very quick player and a crafty player. So I think that would be something that he would have a problem with, and I could see it being Fred and Van de Beek. I could see it being maybe Fred and Matic, but I think Van de Beek's had a good preseason and he's looked sharp. Matic had an excellent preseason, but it might not be his game. It's a difficult choice, I think, because Fred's also not had a lot of minutes in. He's had a long campaign with Brazil, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was Matic and Van de Beek, but I think I'd prefer Van de Beek and Fred, or even McTominay and Fred if they're both fit. I think it will be James, Greenwood, Martial and Fernandes. I think Pogba might be introduced later. And also something I have noticed with Martial is in seasons where he scored on his maybe first couple of games, or maybe the first game that he's played, he's gone on to have a really good season. Because his debut season, he scored 17 goals scored in his debut. The season where he scored the most ever goals, 23 goals and 12 assists, he scored on the opening day. The 17-18 season where he scored 10 goals before Sanchez came in, he scored on the first game of the season. So it's something that he's, if he starts well, he tries to go on the same way, and it builds confidence for him because he is a confidence player. So I could see him starting. And if he gets a goal or an assist or plays really well, I could see it being a big step in the right direction for him. But I could definitely see it being a very similar team to the one against Everton, because I think they're the fittest players But we'll just briefly run off a predicted score. I'll start first. I think it's going to be nervous, but I think United will get over the line 3-1. Aaron?
I think I know we shouldn't be taking that much out of the preseason game, but that Everton game and just how United really came out at them in the first half filled me with probably more confidence that I had before that. And I was just talking to a friend the other day, and we were like, well, Leeds is like the perfect but the worst opening game at the same time, because it's a rivalry. The atmosphere is going to be good, but you never know how they're going to come at you. And if they play their game, they can really kind of knock you off and be a very difficult opponent. But I do think that whatever team starts, United just have enough to kind of make them play like they played at Ellen Road. And I just feel like with fans in the Stretford end, they will have enough to break the deadlock. And then I don't really see us conceding, to be honest. I've watched a few extended highlights of Leeds preseason games, and they haven't looked that great. And like I said, they haven't strengthened. So I think their biggest kind of danger to United will be their fitness. So I would expect United to go out and hopefully make a statement performance in front of the fans with not a fully fit squad, which will hopefully get the media, the negative people talking about, what are they going to be capable of at full strength. So I think I'm going to say 3-0.
It's a strong prediction. I think there's a lot there that I think the intensity that United had against Everton, I think they will try and replicate. Obviously, there was the error at the beginning, which sort of made things go a lot quicker. But, I mean, the other two goals were fantastic and all United's doing, really. So it's the intensity that Greenwood had and the high press that, that got him his goal, because that mistake could have just been left had he not moved in and tried to press them. So it's all about the intensity and how United need to go on. But, good point. Suraj, what do you think?
I'm not as confident as Aryan, but I think we're going to win it. I think we'll win it 2-0, and my bold prediction is that Sancho will score on his debut, whether it's off the bench or starting. And I have a feeling it's going to be one of them in the last minutes after he comes on. So I'm going to say 2-0 with a Sancho goal. Let's be a little more bold. Greenwood scores the first one to get the ball rolling.
That'd be good for his confidence.
That's enough to make me predict some very, very irresponsible things.
Golden Boot, Greenwood, Ballon d'Or in the first few months. Problem solved. Well, I mean, he is in contention for Golden Boy, and so is Ahmad. So if they have a good start to the season, then you never know how it goes. But obviously, the front runners are Mbappe and Haaland, who will be almost certainly set to win. One way or another. I think it might be closer. I think it might be Haaland. It could be Foden, but I don't really see that happening. But we'll have to see. But I'm afraid that is all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Aaron and Suraj, for joining me. Pleasure talking to you as always. And we're looking forward to Saturday, which should be a huge game. And it's just going to be great to see the team walk out to a full Old Trafford again. It's been far too long to see that. So really looking forward to that as well. But in the meantime, if you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss for the next podcast, comment below on the live chat. And if you enjoyed this, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter for all of our